It's mine and it is yours. Malagash is yours.
Hello, Malagash staff, camper, family, random Facebook scroller who happened to come across this video. I'm not really sure why you did. Maybe you thought you recognized me. Maybe you're like, I have no idea who this guy is, but I saw your pink friend back there and I thought he was cool, so I decided to click on the video. I'm glad that you did, and I hope that maybe this will be impactful and you'll be glad that you did click on it. Anyways, I'm Derek. I worked Malagash for 5 years, from 2015 to 2019. First 4 years as a cabin leader, and last year as staff coordinator. Although I think in my heart, I'm a cabin leader. I think I will be until the day I die. And to be honest, I was a camper only actually just for 2 weeks, 1 week in 2012, another week in 2013. And yeah, to be honest, I didn't actually want to go to camp. I was tricked by my friends in high school, but yeah, within the first half hour of being there, I knew the place was special. And not because of the property, although yeah, the sunsets there and the stars are like, I haven't seen anywhere in the world quite like that. But it wasn't the property that really kind of did it for me. It was something about the people and the way that they embraced me and welcomed me and made me feel loved. It really drew me and it really kept me. And I can say that honestly because I worked the next 5 years there, the next 5 summers. So, and not to mention retreats and random getaways throughout the years. So probably total I spent, maybe cumulative about 1 year of my entire life on camp properties. So to say that it's impacted my life would be an understatement. I really believe like God really changed my life there, and I'm sure that many others would say the same thing. So anyways, I was asked to lead a Devo today. And yeah, a little bit about myself. So I'm in seminary right now, which is a fancy word for like school where I study the Bible and I study Christian and like church things. Really just, looking at who is Jesus, who are we, and how do we love others? How do we love the world and help people to recognize the plans and purposes that God has through Jesus? Because I truly believe that they're amazing. I hope that maybe something speaks to you here, that maybe God teaches you something, or maybe even if my words don't make a lot of sense, that still somehow God would reach out and impact you somehow. But yeah, anyways, I took a course last semester on the book of Romans, and that course really impacted me. I was really blown away with really kind of unpacking God's heart in this book. And so I want to read a little bit about, kind of what's struck me and what's impacted me. So if you have your Bible, I'm going to read from Romans chapter 3. I'll go from verse 21 to about 24. So Paul says, Paul's the author of this book. Cool guy, crazy stories, pretty nuts. Look into him. But yeah, he says from verse 21, "But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been disclosed, and is attested by the law of the prophets, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ, for all who believe. For there is no distinction, since all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. They are now justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. Those are some weighted verses. A lot of people have made a lot of things out of what's going on there, and at least the lens or the way that I see it, I feel as though there's a lot of emotion in Paul's writing. I mean, it's hard to know because we're reading it, we're not actually hearing it, but yeah, it seems like Paul's really fired up about something. And when he says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, it's like he's calling them out for something. And when I think about this word call out, it just resonates to me with what's been really at the forefront of the world in the last couple of years. Really the last year, really since kind of that May, June time. And really in my life as well. I think there's been a lot of things that have been shoved under the rug for a long time, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, people are starting to call out things, the lies, systems, and yeah, a lot of that's been true for me, although a lot of it indirectly, I think, in just seeing the news and seeing what's on people's hearts and minds and stuff through social media. I've been called out for a lot, and I've been made aware of, maybe systems or beliefs or ways of life that I've oftentimes unconsciously bought into or lived into, but have been called out and have, kind of reconsidered the way in which I move throughout the world. And there have been times where I've been called out directly. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think of a situation not too long ago where I was with some guys, and I asked one guy a question. I forget what it was, but it was something like, "How was your day?" And whatever he heard, however he interpreted the question, he used it as an opportunity to basically list all the ways in which I'd been a jerk, I'd been a bad friend, the ways in which I did him wrong. And yeah, I wanted to push back on a lot of it because I think a lot of it was bogus. But I think I think a lot of what he said was fair game, and he called me out and exposed me on a lot of ways that I'd been acting. And although it hurt, I think it was healthy in many ways. Phone battery low, that's fine. Yeah, so it got me thinking about this passage in the world, because I think what Paul is doing here is he's calling people out. And when I look at the world, there's a lot of calling out, but there's also a lot of division. There's a lot of canceling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but yeah, I think cancel culture is really relevant, and we see it a lot. This idea that, if you don't believe X, Y, Z like I do, then I'm just going to cancel you. I'm not going to sit down and talk to you about things, but I'm gonna just cancel you, block you out of my life. And I think that it can be damaging, honestly. And when I think about the way Paul is calling people out, for context, when he wrote this letter to the Romans, he was writing to Christians living in the Roman Empire centuries and centuries ago, who were living in a Jewish tradition. Now, if you're not, if you didn't know this, Christianity actually stemmed from Judaism. They're not just these two separate entities, but before Christians were Christians, they're actually practicing Judaism. And so Paul's writing to Christians at a time when Christianity is really first beginning to stem from Judaism, because these people are fresh off of witnessing Jesus. They just witnessed the resurrection, and they're still conceptualizing, okay, what does it mean to move from our old way of doing things now with the reality that God has come, and what do we do with that? And so there's this thing that happened where basically their tradition was only for them, for these Jewish people, but now this new thing that Jesus has done, he's invited all people. He's invited what the Bible calls as Gentiles, people coming from different traditions. And so these Jewish Christians are talking amongst themselves, and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we do with this influx of Gentiles coming into our tradition? Do we make them follow like all these purity laws and rituals that we're so accustomed to? And so when Paul is addressing them, really what's charging him is he's like, you guys are missing the point. You're missing the point in what Jesus actually accomplished, and you're making all these unnecessary dividing lines. And so he's really calling them out here, but he's not just calling them out. You see, that's where our world has been at, and it's been a good thing, because I think a lot of dirt has been uncovered. But if we uncover it, and if we sweep all the dirt from under the rug and just leave it on top of the rug, it's still there. We can't just call people out and cancel them and leave them to figure things out. It's not going to help. So what Paul's doing here is he's calling them out, but see what Christianity, what Jesus offers, it's not just about exposing people for their false beliefs. But what Paul's doing here is he's actually calling them in. He's not just calling them out, he's calling them into something. He's calling them into not just certain beliefs, not just saying, okay, if you have to believe X, Y, Z, and then boom, you're here. But he's actually calling people into a new life. I know the book of Revelation talks about it as a life with no more tears, no more sorrow, no more suffering. I think of in the book of Colossians where it says God has reconciled all things to himself through Jesus. And so my challenge for you is simply to imagine this world that God promises, a world without tears, without sorrow, a world where people and creation and God and everyone lives in harmony, lives in perfect love and in perfect unity. And if you're someone who has been passionate about calling out certain things and calling out people, and maybe you've canceled people and you've put up walls, I guess my challenge is to imagine the new life that God is calling us into, and not just to end with calling out people, but consider what life in harmony could look like with people, despite their differences, despite their differences in belief and tradition, and what it could look like for God to reconcile that, to live in a harmony. And maybe you're someone who maybe you believed or acted differently from people, and people called you out, and they, rather than call you back in, they put up walls, they put up dividing lines, and maybe you're just feeling like alone, trapped, and there's just nothing to live into. I hope that this resonates. I hope that maybe you dig into the Bible, you dig into who this Jesus is, who this God is, and realize that he is reconciling all things. There is a day coming when all things will be made new, and there will be a world of perfect love. And just know that you're invited into that. And it's not just something to sit passively by and wait for, but it is alive in the world, and I believe that it is alive through the church, the people, the followers of Jesus Christ. And although that name has been misused and mistreated and is done a lot of awful things, I do believe in the church. I do believe that there are people out there who are followers of Jesus, who will love, who will embrace. Challenge you not to just believe a certain set of things, but to believe and live into this life that God is establishing. And I hope that maybe you got something from this video. If there's more you want to talk or discuss, find me on social media. I'm sure you know how to do that. If you don't, find a young person. They can probably find me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or maybe someone else. But God bless you, and I hope that you haven't gone out of your mind during this pandemic, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. Anyways, toodle pip.